Okay, so we're live. I'm going to share out the link and then we'll begin chatting. And there's the cat. Okay, I think we're back. So, maybe I should have brushed my hair today. I even went to the office. What do you know? All right. The next war. Might be curious to you why I'm jumping in with what will probably be some extensive commentary on the air war and the way it works and the way it interfaces into land combat. So, excuse me, I've got something stuck in my eye here. So why am I doing it now when I've only played one full turn and we're just starting the second turn? It's because I want to do a prediction. I want to have a prediction. I want to share what I'm learning from the game. Perhaps obtain some feedback from those folks who've played before. I think we all know the War Without KIA blog that ran the fantastic Next War commentary after action report, kind of live reporting as they played, which was very, very good and very entertaining. And those guys have been playing the game for a long time. I've been chatting with him on Facebook and some private messaging as well, and asking questions specifically about the air war and how flak and air units interface in regards to ground support. And so I had some very specific questions of which I will share my thoughts, comments, and reactions to that, and how I went about trying to assess that situation. So I want to talk about two things. So I was talking with him about the game, and I couldn't come to a consensus with him on what the rule really was. I was reading it one way, and I really adamantly thought I was accurate and correct, and he really thought he was accurate and correct, and we got to a solution in the end, and we'll talk about that in a second. So the problem I am beginning to see here is that the system has this potential to swing radically one way or the other in favor of a particular side if you don't play the rules carefully. And once you start tweaking the system, I think it can throw things out of balance pretty quickly. So, let me just get my drink here. You may wonder why I'm drinking beer at 4 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon. It's because I can. I'm taking a day off. So there. A half day. I went to the office earlier today. So I don't usually do live broadcasts during business hours. It's a quiet week this week, and I'm traveling next week, so we won't be doing too much of this. Anyway, so let's get focused. Let's talk about what's going on here. So here's how air works. Let's grab a couple of counters. I think I've got it right here. There are these units. And by the way, if you're here, please say hi. And looks like somebody just did. Hey, Tony, what's up, man? Yeah, day drinking is awesome, isn't it? It's only beer, though. So here's an air unit. And I forget that the front-facing camera doesn't focus terribly well. So you just have to bear with me. It says 226. The last number is the number that you use in ground combat support, either on the offense or the defense, and the middle number is what you use in the intercept phase or when you're defending against flak, and that's important. Okay, the middle number is important, so keep that in mind. Here is it's basically a recon unit, and it has a 9 in it, and I just realized something. I wonder if I have my Wi-Fi turned on. Yes, I do. Okay. Make sure you guys stay connected. This guy has a 9, but has no ground attack capability. So when I read the rules, I was looking at the ground game, and first turn you get all these bonuses for column shifts and stuff like that. But it's difficult to get some of the higher bonuses as the Soviet player because you need to do these wave-based attacks, which give you full column shifts. Everything else is pretty much a DRM. And most of the DRMs tend to fall in favor of the the Allied player because of the cadre ratings or the quality of their troops versus the quality of the troops for the Soviets. At some point, most of the Soviet units will flip and they'll become a cadre rating of 5, which will be equivalent to the cadre ratings for the NATO forces. So that basically +2, +3 modifier will go away later in the game. So keep that in mind, right? So there's this +3 modifier, and that +3 modifier is a plus or minus on the combat results table that we can go up, we can travel up and down on, that we have to declare before the dice are rolled. So there's that factor, and then there's a handful. I'm going to open up the rules here. There's a handful of other factors that come into play. Obviously, terrain comes into play. The type of attack comes into play, whether it's a full assault or it's some other type of thing. Hey guys, welcome. I see a few more people dropping in. Nice to see you here. Please say hi in the comments so I can see who's here and recognize you guys. There's supply status, which is important. So if you can isolate a unit, that's going to have a significant impact upon the combat, and that doesn't happen very often yet. But I could see that it would, and that would be a big bonus, obviously, to the attacker. Ammo rationing and things like that. If you are out of supply and you elect to, you can use your internal supply sources, but then once you run out of that, you go on to this rationing mode, or you can choose to ration. Fatigue is going to play a factor on both sides, may well be fatigued at some point or the other, but typically that's going to go against the attacker because the attacker is on the move and he is consuming a lot more movement points than the other guy, and so he will more than likely have that as a detriment against him. So there's a size differential, which in the optional rules or some of the errata-based rules that said, hey, look, don't use that because the size disparity is already built into the combat factors, so you're really kind of giving the Soviets a double bonus. After playing one turn of the combat without the first turn surprise bonuses, you need that size DRM. It's worth 2 to the attacker, and that helps negate the cadre rating. And then all you have going against you then is fatigue, your step loss condition that could go either way. There may be a no ZOC marker which might go for the Soviets. And then of course there's chemical warfare and other stuff like that. We haven't started using that yet for a good reason. So all up, without this division versus brigade adjustment, you're looking at a 4 to 5 DRM, plus or minus DRM on a 2d6 die roll with a result spread from -3 through to 19. So if you roll 7, you could end up in the 10, 11, 12 range. Let's say you end up at 11. At 11, from 3 to 1 through to 6 to 1, that's an attack result that's bad. That means the attacker must take step loss, and it is, and I believe it's done for the turn. So that's the about on average about the worst that the Soviets will encounter, but that's across the board. So if you roll an average of 7, then get an average of 4 or 5 on a plus. On the pluses, you're really going to have a bad result as the attacker. And I was starting to think about this as I'm trying to knock out Berlin, thinking, Berlin should fall the first turn, right? You would imagine that they would fall the first turn. And that has not happened. I have got, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 divisions, maybe 5 divisions around Berlin, and I've got it down to the stack down to a French unit with 1 step left in it and the British unit with 1 step left in it. and they're hanging in there, and they just went into hedgehog mode, which I should have put them in last turn and forgot to. And that's going to give them another DRM. So they're going to get the 3, they're going to get the hedgehog benefit, and then 3 for the city. That's 5. That's before fatigue, size difference, cadre rating. So there, the attacks into the city get these massive 5, 6, 7, 8 factor adjustments, and even even over. So if I roll extremely low, which is good, even on the 6 to 1, if you can get it 6 to 1, 7 to 1, you potentially in trouble with a +6 or a +7. So very, very hard, it seems, in the early part of the game to get a powerful surge going here with the Soviets. Now, there's this concept of wave assaults, and that's very cool. As you move a unit up, it moves into a zone of control. It has to attack, so it stops, it attacks. You can then decline to do any further attacks or keep attacking, depending on what you want to do. And depending on what the result is, you may just want to stop anyway, because if you roll an average and you're attacking at 2 to 1, 3 to 1, 4 to 1, or 5 to 1, and you have an average 3 or 4 or 5 DRM, you are going to be stopped and you are going to take a step loss. So you stop, you move another unit up, it does the same thing. You get a 1 column bonus because you have a unit adjacent, so now you have 2 units kind of participating in the attack, and so on and so forth. So eventually you can get, +3 or +4 on this attack column shifts. So you can start attacking at 1 to 1, 2 to 1, 3 to 1, and then be bumped up all the way up to 7 to 1. But you still got these 3 or 4 points on DRMs that are going to negatively affect you. So I was thinking, well, gee, this land game, this is really tough on the Soviets. And then I finally thought I was starting to work out how the system was supposed to work, and maybe doing a little bit better. I was thinking maybe it's just the cities that are bad, so I was looking for places to attack that weren't in cities and go around them, because, hey, that's what you should do, right? Kind of doctrine-based stuff. And started to build up this nice attack cadence going with some of the Czech units, who got into a fairly decent position, made an attack, and I thought, oh, hang on a second, I can apply some ground support units here. Well, let's do some ground support. I couldn't bring any arty in because I didn't have any range, but I wasn't airing. And that's where things started to get squirrely for me. I was looking up the rules, and I hadn't really done ground support because we just hadn't had didn't have the units available last turn. And so I started looking through the flak, and I was thinking, well, hang on a second, these flak rules are horrible. What's going on here? For every unit that is in range that has a flak rating, it can fire at that unit or units that comes to provide ground support. Now, earlier on, I showed you these 2 units, and I showed you the dude that has the 6 rating for the ground support, which would mean there'd be 6 factors added to the defense of the hex. And on average, if the unit's a brigade size deal, it probably has a defense of either 3 or 2. So adding 6 is pretty significant. So you're doubling the defense almost, which is really going to change the odds. And the average Soviet division, or whatever the case may be, is either 12, 13, 14, or 15, or 16, something like that. But it's at least 12, right? So it's going to get versus 3, you're going to get 4 to 1. But if I add 6 to it, well, now you've got 9 factors. Versus 12, it's a 1-to-1 attack. Or if it's a weaker unit than this, because there's some weaker units, that might be 3 or 4 factors, and so that's going to be 6, which would bring it down to a 2-to-1 perhaps. So big deal, right? Getting one of these guys in is a big deal. So making it hard to get them in makes sense. So when you go to put flak in, when I read the rules, I was a little confused about how flak works, and I said, oh well, you send in two guys, and then you average the defenses, and the second number, I'm holding it upside down, that's a 9 there, and I can't adjust the focus, so you're just going to bear with me. That's a 9 there and a 2 there, so 9 and 2 is 11, and if I divide that by 2, that's 5.5, we round it up or down, whatever, let's go round it up, right? I forget what it says in the book, but let's call it 6. So with a 6 rating on the air, the flak tables, and looking at the new flak table, not the old flak table, but looking at got a new modified flak table. Some guys fixed bits and pieces of the tables are kind of foobarred. There's these modifiers for the caliber and quality of the interception rating, and with a 6, I'm just going to get a +1 on the die roll, which is better than nothing. And going in with just 1 unit with a 2 rating would be really bad, because it doesn't really matter. It's a 2. We don't get a die roll modifier. That's the point. So then the category of the flak, A, B, C, or D. A being awesome, D not so awesome. D-rated flak has a 50% chance of missing completely, no damage, no step loss. An A-rated unit will guarantee you that you will do something to a unit. You may force a step loss, or you may force a damage, or you may force a step loss and damage. So having a relatively high caliber flak, and most of the flak is C, generally speaking, is C rated. So a C rated flak unit, you've got a 33% chance of not being hit at all, and 4 chances in 6 of taking a damage result, and 2 chances in 6 of taking a step loss. So I'm telling you all these things, just bear with me here, and I know it's me talking versus you showing the map, but me showing you the map, but this is interesting. Well, I think it's interesting. You may think it's boring. In which case, fuck off. So that +1 driving the result down means goodness for the NATO forces, but they have to survive all these rolls. So each group of units is attacked, which is how I read the rules. And that grouping is attacked by the division. There's the one division attacking, that gets to fire its flak. You'll typically have an HQ nearby because it might have electronic warfare capabilities. Oh, that's one of the other things that you get to add. That's a beneficial thing for either one or the other side. They get to add in electronic warfare rating. That's +3. So that's another big change in your odds, in your DRMs. So the headquarters might be nearby, and if he's in range, he can fire. If you use the artillery units that typically travel with the HQ, they have really good flak. They're going to get the fire as well. So that's 3 units that get to shoot at you. There's enough mobile SAM, SA2 SAM units for the Soviets that basically every single division can have its own SAM unit attached to it as well. So that's 4 shots you're going to take. And if I grab 4 dice, I will. 3, 4 dice. Okay. Here's a 10. Fantastic. Here's a typical spread. I just rolled 4 dice, right? So I roll a 2, I roll a 3, and I roll a 5, and I roll a 4. Now, if let's assume I got a +1 on all of those, and I'm going to check comments in a sec, so bear with me. I want to get this thought out. If I ran those across the board and just went, I'm just going to stick them in particular order here, and let's just say that there's no A-rated units firing, doing the flak stuff at the moment. So everything's either B, C, or D. So let's do 2 Bs, 2 Bs and 2 Cs. So the B with the +1. I roll a 3, so it's going to pop to a 4. So that's going to do a damage, which is just a marker that goes under the counter. So there's a damage. That doesn't change the 6 factors going in. The next B is a 6. That's a whiff. The C of 4 + 1 is 5, makes that a whiff. And then a 2 + 1 is 3. That's going to, a 3 is going to do another damage. And I think 2 damages make a step loss. And so that would mean that I would have to choose one of these 2 guys and take a step loss. And so I take the recon unit with the 9, flips it to a 6. This attack goes in, adds the combat factors. So you can see now that becomes, there's a little bit of die rolling there. And there's a massive amount of potential damage that can happen if you don't combine these units. If I had to just send a 2-rated unit in there, that dude he would have got chewed up pretty badly, right? Okay. So I think I posted some of that online somewhere, and a couple of commentators came back and said, "Oh, well, don't forget when you do flak against ground strikes, you attack every unit individually." And I looked at that and I was like, "There's no friggin' way, right? I would have to send 2 or 3 units in to make sure I got enough combat factors through with damages and step losses for every time I was attacked." Now there's some ammo restrictions on flak, so you're not always going to use every flak unit every turn. There's only 2 attacks per game turn for each flak unit, so you can't just fire willy-nilly all the time. But still, you have to send a lot of stuff in, and everything's going to be gone by turn 3. And when I say gone, I mean dead, like off the freaking board, dead, gone. So I thought, well, that doesn't sound right. Dug in, lots of conversations, lots of chit-chatting, and finally I said, you know what, the hell with this. I'm just going to tweet to Mark Herman, who was the developer on this, and get his feedback on what's going on with the air war. Do you group units together and average them in a ground strike or not? And he read the rules. Let's cut long story short, because it's already 21 minutes of me crapping on. Long story short, he read the rule the same way as I read it, which is it's 21.13 or 15 or something like that. That any group of units that goes in, multiple units can go in first of all, and they're grouped together and averaged for ground attacks or flak suppression or any other type of air to ground attack. They're all gathered together, which I think is right, because you've got this massive amount of flak that can be thrown into the sky, and it's going to do significant damage to the Air Force, the opposing air forces anyway. But we do want to, we believe at least that something's going to get through and provide some level of support, perhaps, right? So take that and take the slowness of the the slowness of the Soviet offense and these DRMs negatively impacting the Soviets, and I'm starting to think, hang on a second, wasn't this game designed at the height of the zenith of the Soviet opportunity to attack, which was when the U.S. and the NATO forces thought, oh my God, the sky's falling, we're unprepared and don't have great weapons. The M1 was probably not around or was just being deployed. There was no A-10. There was no powerful satellite control. AWACS were kind of new. So there were a lot of things going against the US. And I expected turn 1 to be a total kind of a blowout, even without chemical and nuclear conflict. And the rules suggest that nuclear combat, you have to plan it 3 turns ahead, which kind of implies that you can't pre-plot. So you can't start the game with nukes. I think I'm going to relax that rule, and I'm going to. There's some rationale behind me not using the chemicals on turn 1 as well, because in this scenario, the Marines and the paratroopers, because it's a sudden attack, they're not available turn 1. They do become available turn 2, but I've also got to have air superiority air superiority and the interception level to use paratroopers and take advantage of them. So I didn't want to start off with the chemical warfare and lose that advantage of having the DRMs for the chemical warfare. I wanted to have chemical warfare, nukes, paratroopers, and Marines all in one big shot for 2 turns and kind of get stuck into it. That's why we're not using the chems and the nukes immediately in turn 1. I think if I played a different type of scenario, there's a couple of scenarios where you can have this build-up phase where you play 2, 3, or 4 or 5 turns and then you start the war. I think that'd be different. Then I'd start off with nuclear activity from turn 1 and chem from turn 1 as well. So I'm curious to hear from other folks who've played what your impressions are of the sustainability and survivability of the NATO forces versus the Soviets without chem warfare and without nukes for the first 2 or 3 turns. Because right now I'm looking at this and I look at the board and I look at the dozens of little 3 defense factor NATO units, and there is no way the Soviets are going to get through all that stuff with the way the DRMs work that I've already explained to you, and the way that the combat system and the air system are going to work together. They're going to blow themselves up before, or bleed themselves out against the brick wall before they get there. And there's so many of the little guys that it's kind of boxed in the maneuver aspects of the game that I thought might be there. The board is almost as crowded as Third World War. So it's kind of a surprise to me to be where I am at the moment and have this, I wouldn't call it a revelation, just a realization that this is not going to be a blowout for the Soviets, number one, and number two, it looks like it could be ugly for the Soviets if the NATO sits back and just go ahead, punch me, keep punching, yep, thanks for punching, that felt great. May I have another? Let's see what happens though. So I'm going to now turn to comments real quick and see what we have going on here. Kent, Antonio, and Mark, and Igor, hello. JT, good to see it. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. So, it's a particularly interesting setup that we have here, and things that are going on with the board. I'm not disappointed with the game at all. I'm not upset with it. I think it all plays very smoothly. But where I thought I was going to be looking for special rules to make it easier on NATO, I'm now flipping around the other way, thinking, wow, we're really going to need some attaboys and some love for the Soviets to help them gain what arguably should be a little more combat momentum here, because they are not going to be able to dislocate, disrupt, and destroy the enemy here by any shape or means. Comments are rolling in here. Hey, Brad, what's up, man? So yeah, I think this is one of those, yet another interesting design where you read the design notes, you read the articles that come in the magazine game, like BAOR or HOFGAP or Fifth Corps, where it's doom and gloom and the sky is falling, and oh my God, the Soviets would have taken out NATO at the knees and the US at the knees, and we never stood a chance. But when you sit down and actually play the game the way they've written the rules for the game, it doesn't play it out that way at all. I am looking at this map and thinking, this is going to turn out exactly how BAOR turned out when I played with Michael Valance. And that was the Soviets just kept, let's one more time into the breach, and we got absolutely freaking nowhere because of the way the combat system worked against the Soviets and their attacks and their philosophy and all that sort of fun stuff. So I'm not sure if this counts as AAR or rules talk or whatever it is, but it's trying to have, hey, Greg and John, I'm trying to have a conversation here with you, or an exploration via soliloquy of the game mechanics here. Doesn't mean they're broken, just means that they're different from what I expected, and we are now trying to work out how this is going to play out. I can tell you that I will not be playing 20 turns of this if it's going to be 20 turns more of the same. So I'm going to be going back over the rules, going back over the combat system, and looking at alternative ways for me to approach combats, and how to get more units in and drive away some of these DRMs so that the Soviets have a better chance, and start rolling better on flak, I think. So anyway, that's all I have for you. I don't really think you need to hear too much more of me prattle on about this game. I will say that I have spoken now for 30 minutes consistently, and yesterday I was being recorded for some video for a corporate presentation, and it took me an hour and a half to get 4 minutes of professional video done. I'd much rather be doing this than talking about whatever my industry is. Anyway, a couple more comments here. I'll just say hi real quick. Yeah, Mark, that's a really good observation. Does it become a grind with heavy casualties, and a lucky turn would win it? I don't know that you would have to roll pretty well across the board. There's several rolls that are going to occur for any given attack. So if you're attacking, you're making one roll you're making a roll for electronic warfare. So there's that. There's a plus or minus 3 or a wash for electronic warfare. That could be a big decider. That could cut down the NATO benefit. I also think later in the game, when more units have flipped to their seasoned, they've moved into what's basically a seasoned mode. They've all fought a little bit now, so they all become 5s. Or yes, they all become 5s. So that then becomes a wash. So there's a +2 or +3 that I've got some dude sending me a message. Go away. A +2 or a +3 to the die roll. If that goes away and you get electronic warfare and you had a 1 or a 2 for chem warfare, now you're looking at a 5, 5 potential moves on the rows for any given column on the CRT. That's a big difference. So now it's 5 in your favor versus 5 in the enemy's favor. So maybe it ends up being a net 2 or 3 difference. That could be pretty cool, subtracting 2. Although you have to be careful because there's some nasty results in the lower parts of the combat results table. So yes, I think it's interesting that I think later in the game the Soviets have a better chance than they do earlier in the game. The French are in, man. The French are all in. They rolled to be all in. They have advanced into in and around Munich, incurring massive fatigue, but they drove through the night to get into the game. So finish up my other point. There seems to be this benefit to the Soviets later in the game. I would almost want to save my chemical warfare capability to later in the game, wait until we've kind of worn down the US forces and the NATO forces a little bit, and then boom, use them and the nukes in one mighty blast across a section of map, and then blow a hole open and see what you can do in terms of driving into the hinterland to capture locations. But once again, with so many units, so many little units, it would be very, very easy for the NATO forces to build a layered defense of 2 units on the front line, then 3 hexes back in some decent piece of terrain or on a key road, pop another unit there, then put a unit in the city that is a VP location, and you're not going to get that city in a turn. You're probably not going to get it in 2 turns. So you can slow things down enough that you would be able to move forces and reinforce. That's what I'm guessing will probably happen here, but we'll see. So I think that's probably enough. Yeah, Greg. Oh, okay. That's a good point, Greg. I don't know, man. I guess I was expecting Yeah, you can. You can move through chem hexes. Nuke hexes, not so much. I think you have to pay a penalty. You've got to pay a penalty for chem hexes as well. There's a sliding scale there that I could probably find if I was careful and try not to knock pieces over. And I've got a beer bottle on the table. Let's put it on the floor. Oh, I don't know where the chem effects are. I would have to find it real quick here. Is it on this table? These are repurposed tables, so not is repurposed the right word? Probably not. Yeah, I don't know where the chemical stuff is. So, but that's kind of what happens. We'll get into some of this. We'll do some live play at some point. It's probably not going to be for a couple of weeks because I'm gone. Sunday I leave and I don't get back until the 21st. So I'll be taking some games with me on the road. Maybe we'll do some live play from some bullshit place, some hotel somewhere. Okay. It just seems Soviet equipment and doctrine loses out versus Western tech and flexibility. Well, yeah, Greg, that's kind of why I'm surprised here, because there's no M1, there's no A10, there's some Cobras and stuff, but there's not a lot of tech. It's the M60A3s and shit like that, and even then the Soviets looks like they're struggling. Difficult. So, all right, really appreciate you guys tuning in. That's really helped me crystallize what I think I'm thinking, and what I think I know. So all the best, and we'll talk to you soon. And I am going to go probably. I need a nap. I'm freaking tired. I had a long week this week. Yeah, that's a good point. PDO gone one. I hear. We are chewing up divisions already. I'm chewing them up in Berlin, no less. All right, gonna let you guys go. Talk to you soon. I need to pause for a minute because apparently the video cuts itself off.